Hey guys, welcome to Dylan's Little Hobbies, and today I am going to tell you guys how I got into Dragon Ball Super. So, the way I got into Dragon Ball Super, to explain, I have to explain how I got into anime in the first place, and it's kind of a rabbit hole story, but hopefully you guys don't get bored with it. Hopefully you guys like this video, and if you do, remember to like, share, and subscribe for more Dragon Ball videos from me. Without further ado, this is how I got into Dragon Ball. So, Dragon Ball, unlike many, Dragon Ball was not my first anime or manga series that I got into. A lot of people, and I mean a lot of people, this is their first series that they ever get into. It used to be on Cartoon Network years and years and years ago. Apparently, I had absolutely no idea. I have no recollection of Dragon Ball, ever seeing Dragon Ball before high school, to be honest with you, and that's just me. I got into Dragon Ball in high school. How I got into anime, though, is kind of a silly story. So, if you want to go by the first anime I ever saw, it would be either Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Pokemon. I remember being a really little kid, like, I want to say 6, 7, 8 years old, and I used to watch Yu-Gi-Oh! I never really collected any of the cards. I used to watch Pokemon, and I used to really be a humongous fan of the Pokemon anime until the Diamond and Pearl series came out, until the entire thing with Dawn. I enjoyed May. Misty is, of course, my favorite character when it comes to the girls of, the original Pokemon series. May, I enjoyed. Dawn, I absolutely can't stand, and I've seen clips of Pokemon since then, but I don't watch any of the other animes or shows that Pokemon does anymore. I used to play the Pokemon games on DS. I never owned a Pokemon game. I used to play it, and this is how. I used to own something like Mario on DS, on my PlayStation DS. It's those little PlayStation things that, you have. I used to have one. I used to play with it every single day. I would bring it to school, and I would switch games with my friend who had Pokemon. So that's how I used to play Pokemon. So I have played Pokemon, the DS games, but even with all that, I never knew that Pokemon, or Yu-Gi-Oh! For that matter, was Japanese until I was like 14 years old, and I stopped playing them around the age of like 10 or 11 years old, only because, they weren't coming out with anything new that I was interested in, and that's the only reason why. It had nothing to do with me growing out of Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon. It had everything to do with me not finding interest in the original Pokemon series anymore, or the Yu-Gi-Oh! Series anymore, but anyway, like I said, it's going to be a rabbit hole story. The only anime that I really consider the first Japanese anime that I ever got into, and the first Japanese anime that got me to get invested in the story, was when I was 12 years old. I don't know if anyone remembers Wizard of Waverly Place. I used to love Wizards of Waverly Place. It was this cartoon. It had Selena Gomez in it, and a whole bunch of other Disney stars. It used to be on Disney, for crying out loud. And you see, every Saturday night, this was my Saturday night when I was a kid. On Saturday nights, when I was 12 years old, I would watch Disney Wizards of Waverly Place. And then after that ended, I would go to Boomerang. That's right, Cartoon Network's Boomerang channel. I would go to there, and I would watch the reruns of Samurai Jack and Teen Titans. Not Teen Titans Go, Teen Titans. And speaking of Teen Titans, there's another show that was, of course, it's not Japanese, but it has some Japanese animation tropes in it, and that might be why I really, really like anime, was because of Teen Titans of all things. And, I'm not a DC fan at all. I know nothing about DC except Teen Titans. I'm a Marvel guy. I know the names of Batman and Superman, for crying out loud, but I don't know anything about their stories at all. I don't even know who's the big villain against Superman. I know Joker, but I know nothing about DC except what's in Cartoon Network's Teen Titans. And not Teen Titans Go, the original Teen Titans. And, it's not Japanese, but I always remember the reason why I love that show so much, other than the darker tones in that show, was the somewhat animation that they did. It just really entertained me as a kid, and that's why whenever I first found out that was actually Japanese animation tropes, it might be why I absolutely love Japanese anime. Again, I didn't find out that was Japanese anime tropes or had anything to do based off the Japanese animation until, I was 14 years old. Now, when I was 12 years old, though, eventually they moved Wizards of Waverly Place to Sunday, so I had a half hour to spare to mess around with until I had to watch Teen Titans Go and then Samurai Jack. And then I always went to bed after that. So, what could I do? There was nothing there, nothing in that time slot. I remember, I think for a week or so, I was just flipping through channels at that time, trying to find something to do until Teen Titans or Samurai Jack came on Boomerang. And I didn't like the show that was on Boomerang before Teen Titans, and of course Samurai Jack came on. So I didn't know what to do. And then I stopped on this one show called Naruto. And believe it or not, Naruto was on Disney XD, of all things. You know Disney XD? The place where Star Wars Rebels came from? Yeah. Naruto was on Disney XD. Where did I first find Naruto is when I was 12 years old on Disney XD, of all places. And I was instantly mesmerized. And you know what? I don't get instantly mesmerized by a lot of shows very easily. I was instantly mesmerized by what I saw of Naruto, and it was, of course, Naruto Shippuden on Disney XD. And then Disney XD actually cancels the show. They don't show on Disney XD anymore, and I only saw maybe 4 or 5 episodes. I only had Naruto for a month. After that could have been the end of all Japanese anime and manga for me. There was really nothing else that was interesting me about it. And of course, you will say, well, what about the internet? Look, I was a kid. The internet to me was games and toys. It wasn't really. It never crossed my mind until much later on to actually go look up anime on a computer. It never daunted my mind when I was a kid to go and do that. So, once Naruto ended on Disney XD, that could have been it for me. And then my dad got me the first Naruto manga. And I absolutely freaked out. I became a complete Japanese anime and Japanese manga, mostly, absolutely went bonkers on it. I bought every single one I could read, and I tried reading One Piece. I'm not a fan of One Piece, I'm sorry. I also tried to read Bleach, and one of these days I gotta get back. I gotta read Bleach. I think I only read the first 10 or 20 chapters or so, somewhere between there. I gotta finish Bleach one of these days. I know Bleach is so old now, but I gotta finish it one of these days. But how did I get into Dragon Ball? That's what this is about. Now you know how I got into anime. The Dragon Ball one is actually pretty simple. I have a friend in high school in sophomore year, and he absolutely loved manga and Japanese animation. And the first one that he ever got into was, of course, owing to him, Dragon Ball. and he was so excited. He came to me one day at school, so excited because they were bringing Dragon Ball Z Kai to Nicktoons of all things. And of course he was telling me about it, but I knew nothing about Dragon Ball. I knew nothing about what he was talking about at the time. And eventually I was trying to get him into Naruto, and he was, of course, telling me more and more about Dragon Ball, so we made a deal. If he got into Naruto, I would get into Dragon Ball. And the first series I ever saw was Dragon Ball Z Kai on Nicktoons. If you don't know what Nicktoons is essentially the sister channel to Nickelodeon, in the same way that Cartoon Network Boomerang is a sister channel to Cartoon Network. You know, it's pretty much that. And I absolutely, it took me a little bit. I had to get through quite a few episodes before I really started to get into it. It wasn't until really the well, I won't even say the Cell Saga. It wasn't until Nicktoons got into the Frieza Saga that I actually started really getting into it. The first thing about, you know, the entire Saiyan Saga, when I first saw it, I was actually kind of bored with it the first time I saw it, but my friend kept telling me, no, it gets better, it gets better. So I kept watching it, and it got a whole lot better, especially within the Frieza Saga, and then the Cell Saga. I don't like the Buu Saga, to be honest with you, but, you know, eventually it got me into it. So, since then, I have, of course, gone back and seen Dragon Ball Z, the original series, and what's the difference between Dragon Ball Z and Z Kai is pretty simple. You see, originally when the American audience was bringing Japanese shows to the American world, they made terrible decisions with the animes they got. They messed up a lot of the dialogue, and they also censored a lot of the violence in the shows. Now, I don't mind the censoring. I mean, we don't need nudity in cartoons. We just don't. We also don't need cuss words. I don't mind that. But when you tamper with the actual dialogue to the point where it changes the story, it drives me crazy. And I didn't know that until Dragon Ball. And since then, I've also watched Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon in the original Japanese versions. And let me tell you, those two shows are completely different in Japan than they are in the United States. It's insane. And the exact same thing happens to Dragon Ball. Dragon Ball Z got so messed up that Goku looked more like a Superman figure when he wasn't supposed to be. That wasn't Toriyama, the original creator's view of him, and that's not what he wrote him as to be. So it just drives me crazy that they did that. But I have seen, of course, Dragon Ball Z. Dragon Ball Z Kai was supposed to be a better English translation and a remastered formation of the original Dragon Ball Z, which, again, I've watched it. I loved it. That was the first one I ever saw. And then, of course, I've gone back and watched the original Dragon Ball Japanese version, and of course, I've read the Japanese, the manga, the Japanese manga for Dragon Ball. I absolutely loved it. Toriyama's original work, I absolutely loved it. And of course, I became a humongous fan of Dragon Ball Super. Nonetheless, that's how I got into Dragon Ball, was because of a friend of mine in high school. That's also how I got into anime. Let me know down in the comments below, how did you get into Dragon Ball? Not only Dragon Ball, but how did you get into anime in general? Let me know down in the comments below. Without further ado though, thank you guys for watching. And I know the sun is just coming out of my window here, and it's messing up my lighting on my camera. I'm so sorry for that. Anyway, thank you guys for watching, and I'm out. Bye!